You know, the difference between winners and losers is what they focus on. Winners focus on opportunities, losers focus on challenges, period. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Sean Moore. We're back with Whiskey Wednesday. Jake Sheehy.
Yes, sir.
Myself,
how you doing?
Talking about all kinds of stuff.
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
I'm doing good, man. It was.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Man, great day to be alive.
Great day to be alive.
Happy to be here. Blessed to be here. Got some great stuff, trending topics, short-term rental stuff. Got a lot of good stuff on today's agenda. I can't complain.
Let's hear it. What are we talking about today?
Okay, we're doing. You just went to this speaking event this past week, so we got to know about it, how it went, things like that. Then we're talking about the 50-year mortgage. Thoughts on that? If you think it's worth it. Then we're diving right into some short-term rental stuff. You know, we want to allow our viewers and listeners and people that are coming into this to walk in with their eyes wide open, as you say. So touching on that, you know, what's the best way we can allow those people to do that? We're going 3 things I wish I knew before I started investing. We're going to talk about the differences and similarities between a timeshare and a vacation home, a lifestyle asset. And then we're going to touch on regulations because we didn't touch on it last week. Okay. But those are our things for today. Now, but of course, we got to do this real fast. Hold on. We got to shout out Shane and Danielle. They just had their new Adventure Awaits, Kissimmee, Florida. Amazing property. I know they listen. I know they watch. And they've come in and they record an episode with us.
Been on the podcast before. Amazing part of our Vodyssey family. They've got this new property in Kissimmee, Florida.
Beautiful,
awesome. Fully immersive experience. I mean, you know, Shane's kind of a tech guy. He's like he fully automates these rooms, so those pictures aren't even doing it justice because I know they do all the sound and the movements and all the stuff that he automates and. But it is, it's we need to put that in the show notes. So
absolutely.
Check it out. It's always good.
Yeah.
We always say success leaves clues. So check out what successful investors are doing.
Yeah.
And don't try to reinvent the wheel.
Man,
reverse engineer, right?
They leaned in and it's beautiful. I love the Tron room, guys. I'll put the link in the show notes, as you said, but just really great. Just wanted to shout them out.
Shane and Danielle.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
All right. First topic. How was the speaking event? What was it like? You know, is it nice just getting on stage every once in a while? Or
yeah. You know, I this year I took a lot of time off from stages. You know, with my mom and everything that was going on this year with her cancer and her battle with cancer, and all that stuff. And so I didn't get on nearly as many stages as I have in the past and started getting back into it. And this is one that I've been on before, with Michael Parker's event, Ultimate Freedom Live in California, 3-day event focused on not just on real estate investing. It's really for entrepreneurs about how to really dial in the life strategies, the business strategies, and then ultimately wealth building strategies, which is where I came in and contributed as an talking to entrepreneurs about options for building that passive income portfolio and the pros and cons of vacation rental investing. So it was awesome. It was fun to be, you know, it's those events. There's nothing that beats a live event. There's power in proximity. There's a lot of benefits to being around other people that are like-minded, and to be able to contribute to an event like that was really a lot of fun. Michael's got an amazing group of people. The people who show up to his event, his team, everything else. I'm just always a big fan of what he puts together, and so always happy to be contributing in those events.
That seems nice. You know, I don't know how I could do with the public speaking, standing on the stage in front of people like that. Do you get nervous at all, or do you? I mean, you just prepared and you've done so many times.
Yeah,
I've
done it a lot. I mean, it's always you always want to do a great job. You know, you always want to deliver with high energy and just, you know, make sure you're serving the audience to the best of your ability. And so I learned a long time ago, it's not about me. You know, and that takes a lot of the pressure off, you know, that it's, you're just trying to share. And fortunately, I've been on a lot of stages at this point. So I don't get super nervous, and the message is pretty constant for me. You know, we're talking about one specific thing that we know very well. I don't really deviate from the things that I feel competent to speak on. And
smart.
We stay in our lane for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's really interesting, man. I'm happy you got to do that. That seems like a fun opportunity. So I'm excited to see the photos and stuff. Make sure to follow us on socials.
The airports, by the way, were not.
Well, they were better?
Yeah, they were fine. And they were still canceling flights. So I went from out of Salt Lake flew into Oakland, then went into Walnut Creek is where we were speaking at. But I mean, Oakland airport seemed like a ghost town. Salt Lake was way less busy than I normally saw it. And that was I flew out Thursday, came on Saturday.
Yeah.
And so I was expecting to see delays and stuff like that. It was, I didn't notice anything. I know that everything kind of got back in action, and government shutdown officially ended last week. And so we were, maybe that had something to do with it, but it was, there was it felt like a lot fewer people flying. So maybe people proactively canceled as well from the horror stories they heard the week before. But it was, I was kind of expecting a little bit longer waits, security lines, everything else. I didn't notice any of it.
Well, that's awesome. That's a blessing. You breezed right by. That's awesome. Okay, going into our next trending topic here, 50-year mortgage. I've heard both sides. I watched PBD. I guess they did it on last Wednesday. They kind of talked about it. I've seen some things on social media. I've seen some other people talk about it. But I'm curious your opinion on it. Is it better for someone like, me and maybe my situation where the payment is less, or it's easier, but you're just trapped in it for longer? Do you have a certain viewpoint on it?
Yeah, I maybe have a little bit of a contrarian viewpoint. Most of the stuff I see online, there's a lot of hate on this 50-year mortgage.
I'm getting excited. Okay.
I'm not I don't think it's that bad of an idea.
Okay.
Honestly, I mean, most people are not in a mortgage for the term and the life of the mortgage. Most of our mortgages, when they amortize all the way out, you're paying the majority of your interest on the front end. It would be nice to see that amortization schedule flip-flop a little bit. Maybe at least half of the payment going to principal. So it's just, your first 5 years on a 30-year mortgage, it feels like it's going all interest. On the 50-year mortgage, I don't know maybe it's 7 or 8 years, 9 years, who knows, it's mostly interest. And so but it does make it a little bit more affordable. The funny thing is it happens to be that Trump floats this out, and pretty much anything that comes out of his mouth is either people love it or they absolutely hate it. And there's a lot of hate online on the 50-year mortgage. I don't think it's that bad of an idea. We're trying to figure out how to make houses more affordable, how the younger generation will start to say, I can do this again. I'm excited about buying a house. That's really good for the US economy. It's really good for, that ultimately the American dream, and buying that house and living in it. Most of the time you're not staying in a mortgage, the life of the mortgage. The average time that somebody has a mortgage before they sell or refinance is just over 7 years. And so even on a 30-year mortgage. And I mean, here's the thing that I think is crazy. One, mortgage is just the cost of the opportunity, right? What is the arbitrage? What is the cost of the difference of the opportunity I'm getting into versus what that money is going to cost me? And you got to just look at it. And the fact that people are like, oh, you're going to pay X amount more in interest, that's over the life of the loan. No kidding, you're going to pay more interest on a 50-year versus a 30-year. We have 10-year, 15-year, 20-year mortgages, and you're paying a lot more on a 30-year mortgage than you are on a 15-year mortgage as far as interest goes, because the fact that you're borrowing the money for longer. And so I think you got to look at the arbitrage of the opportunity. What are the pros and cons of home ownership? What is what kind of an opportunity is there to buy this home, start to set down roots, build families, get established in a community, all those different benefits of home ownership that, and then ultimately the appreciation of it. We talked an episode or two ago about the difference between the net worth of homeowners versus renters. And it was like $10,000 versus $400,000, 40x difference. And so that's an opportunity there that might be more available for somebody if they're able to finance that property for longer, make it more affordable. The fact of the matter is wages are not keeping up with the cost of things going up. And so the ultimate solution to these problems is people make more money. And so, nobody's going to come save you on that one right now. Right. And so the way for people to make more money is a lot of times side hustles, entrepreneurship, business ownership, the right investments, all those different things. But at the end of the day, if you're saying, hey, listen, the younger crowd is kind of giving up on the dream of home ownership, I like that these conversations are coming out there saying, hey, how can we make it more affordable? How can we make it to where somebody can qualify? I've heard the other ideas floated around where Fannie or Freddie, or maybe both of them, were floating around the idea of lowering the minimum credit score to get into a mortgage. From 620 down to, I don't know what they were going to lower it to. And I'm not a fan of that. I think that's really flirting with what we were doing back in the mortgage crisis of if you could fog a mirror, you could get a mortgage. And there were people that were, I think you have to earn the right to borrow money. And I think that is showing that you have some level of fiscal responsibility, paying bills, doing that stuff. And if you don't, and you are not showing that you care that much, I think you shouldn't probably be able to. You probably need to learn that skill set, develop that skill set. But 50-year mortgage, I don't think it's that bad of a deal.
Okay.
You're talking about appreciating assets. You're talking about an asset that's going to go up in value over time, and it's a very stable asset. It doesn't have big swings and spikes. Nobody has a problem pulling out 20 years on a damn boat that's going to go down in value, and just so they can afford a $300,000 wakeboard boat because they can't afford it. They're like, well, I'm going to loan it for 20 years. There's 15-year car loans. These are depreciating assets, and you don't see anybody throwing a lot of shade on those types of loans. They should. I mean, they might be, maybe they are, but the 50-year mortgage seems like it's gotten a lot of pushback, and I don't know. I think that I think if you can help people get into an opportunity that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to, you can make it where it's more affordable. There's the benefits of being able to own these homes, of appreciation, like I said, establishing yourself in a community, growing a family, putting down those roots and really getting, that is good for the American economy. It's good for American communities. To have people who are established and invested in those areas, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And so I think that there's a lot of benefits in any of these conversations where we can help the younger generation get into homes. I think is a huge benefit. I mean, if you had to just look at one reason why, look at the difference in net worth: 10,000 versus 400,000 on average.
Right.
That's a massive argument, in my opinion, to own homes, and we should do what we can for that younger generation to try to help them and encourage them to be able to buy those homes. And if that's the banks extending those mortgages out a little bit longer, likely you're not going to pay on a mortgage for 50 years, right? And so you're likely going to be refinancing, or you're going to be selling and moving up into a house, and you're able to start to parlay some equity. Maybe you don't have to take that big of a mortgage out. Maybe your earning power has gotten better, your buying power, all those different things. So I don't think it's that bad of a deal.
Interesting. All right. Good take on it. All right, let's go into some short-term rental stuff, huh?
Let's do it.
Because I think let's see where we're at. We're already 12 minutes in. We've done some good stuff here. Let's really dive deep.
Is that my warning to get less winded?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I'm just saying, we did that. So no, let's go into a short-term rental. We got walking into this with your eyes wide open. I know I've kind of just heard behind the scenes, type stuff where it takes a lot to get into this. It takes the proper mindset. It takes an amount of discipline to save before you start investing. You have to be at a certain point in your life. It takes a lot to get into this. And for some people, I've spoken to some on the phone where they go, "Oh, I just wanted you to do it for me." I literally had a guy say that the other day. I was interested because I thought you guys were just going to do it all. But so how can people really understand this, walk into this with their eyes wide open? I know that's the main thing you say. What are some of these conflicts maybe you're seeing?
Yeah, I think that we are conditioned as consumers for the easy button and instant gratification.
Right.
Going back to the person, I thought you were just going to do it for me.
Right.
Yeah, great. Well, I could go buy you an amazing property, and I could hand it over to you, and then you're gonna hold it. And a year from now, I'm gonna call you up and say, "How's that property doing, Jake?" And you know nothing about the business you got into. You know nothing about real estate, and I could give you the best opportunity. I promise you, that sucker's not going to be performing the way it should be. Right. And so this is where I have a hard time with, and I don't, and I never will do the done for you programs of saying, "Hey, listen, I'm gonna hand somebody a property that is completely ready to go and set up," because there's going to be decisions you have to make, levers to pull when it comes to pricing and optimization down the line. And if you don't understand the game you're playing, you're going to struggle with it. And, there's a lot of really good properties in really good markets that don't make much money. And it's because the owners don't understand the game they're playing.
Right.
And so even if it's no different than I was a big fan of the HGTV shows back in the day, because I used to do a lot of fix and flips. And so I'd watch a lot of those shows, and they'd come in and they'd go in, and some of them, they would find these families that they would redo a house. They would say, hey, listen, we're going to come in and redo your house and everything else. And
move that bus.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so you'd see them and they hand this beautiful house over, but you saw how they lived before. You saw what the house looked like before.
Right.
And the expectation was, for whatever reason, they were going to get this beautiful model home back and it was going to stay like that. And the reality is it doesn't, right? Because
it's a good point.
They just had this put together for them.
Right.
They didn't go have to really do the hard work and understand what it took and everything else. Not that I love those shows, by the way. Move That Bus. Like, you know,
that was always a fun one.
Makeover. Yeah. They're fun. They're great stories. I'm not throwing shade on stories. I'm trying to make a point of those homes don't look like that a year from then. And I was talking to somebody that had a HGTV show, and we were talking about that specifically, and they don't show a lot of that obviously on air. But he said you'd be shocked at what the properties look almost the exact same as we got them pre-rehab, pre-redo. Right. After a year because the people, that's how they lived, right? That was the way that they lived, and so So that kind of addresses why I'm not a big fan of the delivering done for you. Yeah. Right. I get people want it. You know, it's nice to just say, hey, listen, I don't have time. I don't want to do it. But if I don't have time, it's not a priority. Right. We've talked about that before. And so I always use the time excuse as a judgment on somebody's priorities. Truly. Like, you tell me you don't have time. All I hear is it's not a priority. I don't want to do it. So I'm like, hey, listen, good. Right. I'm not here to tell you what your priorities are. I'm not here to set your priorities for you. Right. I'm just reading the room and saying, you just told me you don't have time. That means that you don't have it's not a priority for you. So if it's not a priority, you're not going to do what it needs to be to do it right. This vacation rental game now has become very mainstream and very mature very quickly, right? We hit the scene like it was gaining popularity. Things were going really good on kind of a regular, like, nice upward trajectory from 2015 to 19. 2020 hits, COVID hits, boom, it falls off the cliff for 2 weeks. Yeah. 2 weeks it falls off the cliff, and then boom, it shoots right back up. It's almost like it hit the ground and just had a rocket ship shoot up, and all of a sudden it just exploded onto the scene as this asset class that became this. Everybody thought it was the end all be all of short or real estate investing. It was like, man, if I had a short term rental, I was making money hand over fist. It was like having toilet paper during COVID. Yeah, everybody got introduced to this game. In my opinion, in a very kind of dangerous way, because they thought it was easier than it is. And it never was that easy. It was always a game that had a lot of moving parts. Right. And I love it. It's such a fun game because of those moving parts. It allows us different levers to pull to get our unfair share of business. Consumers absolutely love this as an asset class to spend money on. So there's a lot of really good opportunities. The issue becomes, if you don't operate toward the top of the market, because that is what the consumer wants. The consumer's not looking for the best deals. We all look for a good deal, right? But the consumer is not. They're not like going out and searching for the lowest price homes. They're not searching for the best buys. They want the best return on their investment on that experience that they're willing to pay for, and they're willing to pay. We just see it over and over and over again that they're willing to pay toward the top of the markets. Right. And that doesn't mean, when I say they're paying at the top of the markets, I'm not talking about having to have these massive, huge properties, multi-million-dollar properties. I'm not saying that. It's not the most expensive properties in the market. It's the best properties that are delivering the best experience in every segment of the market. You can have the best budget properties. You can have the best one-bedroom properties, the best two-bedroom properties. But the consumer is choosing the best ones, right? And they're willing to pay you more for it. And so the mistake with short-term rental investing is new investors assume that they're in the real estate game, and they assume and they budget for buying these properties, down payments, maybe paying for some furnishings, but they're not budgeting nearly enough to create these immersive experiences to give the consumer a reason to pay you more money. And because of that, it puts them at a huge disadvantage to the people like us who are willing to do that. And we will crush them in the market when we go market against them. And I'm saying that with,
I just like how you say it.
I'm saying it in the nicest way possible. You won't compete with us. You just won't. And us being a collective, us of the investors that choose to operate toward the top of the market. market, you know.
Okay, so we kind of touched on there the problems with these people, the people that, you know, you come back a year from now and it goes back the way it was. Okay, so we know what we're not looking for. What is someone that we are looking for? What is the kind of person that we are looking for? The person that says, I have extra time and I'm willing to put the work in. Are there certain things you look for when you're talking to someone that you go, okay, this person's got what I'm looking for?
Yeah, I look for one thing. It's an attitude.
Okay.
It's like, hey, listen,
yeah,
do you have the attitude that nobody's coming to save you, that personal responsibility, individual responsibility, like personal, like that extreme ownership of saying, I am willing to go do what it takes to build something for myself, to take care of myself, both lifestyle, financially wise, like we talk about lifestyle, financial freedom. But we say, hey, listen, at the end of every episode, what do I say? Go pick the one thing you can do today to build the life you don't want to take a vacation from. So I look for the person who latches onto the idea that is their responsibility to go build that life. Nobody's coming to save them. I'm going to take all the advantages that I have. I'm going to use the disadvantages that are in front of me and use them as leverage or figure out how to navigate around them to go say, hey, listen, here's the deck of cards I was dealt. Now, what can I do with this deck of cards to go build a better life tomorrow than I have today? That's all I care about. I just want that person that says, hey, listen, I'm willing to do that. I really worry about the person, and I don't like working with the people that tell me all the reasons they can't do something, you know, because that usually is an attitude that doesn't go away too soon. But I love the people that are like, hey, listen, I don't know how to do this. I know it can be done, and but I'm willing to do what it takes. You know, whether and it is going to be effort and sacrifice and hard at times and all those different things. And the person that's okay with that is going to, I mean, they're going to look back in a year, 3 years, 5 years, and they're going to be shocked at what they built. And those are the people that are really, really fun to work with, because they're willing to learn. What I don't look for is somebody that has all the knowledge or has all the ability to go do everything, because you can learn all that. We can hand you that. The process and the blueprint is in front of you. And so you just have to I look for somebody that has the attitude of saying, hey, listen, I want to capitalize on the advantages, the capital I have, the time I have, the knowledge I have, and I want to be able to leverage those three things into a bigger and better life tomorrow.
Wow, that's a great answer. That's a fantastic answer. Yeah, those are the kinds of people you want to be like in the trenches with too. I mean, even the good times or the bad times, I'd want to be with the person that's like, maybe I don't know how to do it right now, but I'm going to find a way. I'm going to put the time into it. But isn't it
interesting? Like I've never met anybody that says, yeah, I don't want to be around that person.
Yeah.
Yet. So
yeah, dude.
We all want to be around that person. Nobody wants. Yeah, it's like, hey, who do you want in the foxhole with you, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I want that guy or that girl.
And that's a good point.
You know, nobody says they don't want to be that. Right. But how often, or how rare is that person? Because I don't know what it is. Naturally, you find more people that will give you a reason why they don't have the time, why they don't have the money, why they don't possess the knowledge, right? Instead of saying, hey, listen, here's my starting point, whatever that is. I trust that somebody else can show me how to leverage exactly where I'm at, whether it's a really advantageous starting point or a very disadvantaged starting point. There's going to be somebody that can show you how to capitalize on it. And but the attitude, a lot of times when we have things that are stacked against us, when the deck is, maybe not as favorable as we want it, we focus on that, right? And that's where the challenges come. The difference between winners and losers is what they focus on. Winners focus on opportunities, losers focus on challenges. Period.
Yeah.
Convince me otherwise. What do they say? What did
talk to me?
I don't know. What did Charlie Kirk say when he would go to prove me wrong or something?
Prove me wrong. Oh, okay. Yeah, it was some one of those guys. There's another guy that did the college debater thing that always had that sign. Yeah. Maybe it was Charlie. But it's interesting I'm thinking like, what's the difference between those people? And starting out saying like, I don't know the answer, but I'm willing to find out how. That takes it takes courage to be able to tell someone, I don't know how to do this. Like the honesty of saying like, I'm not the best in this area, or it's way easier to kind of, I guess, just deflect, go in your armadillo shell, style and go, I can't do it right now, and deflect the reason, instead of like having to face it, go, I don't know, I'm not the best at this. And that takes like vulnerability to do that. And maybe that's another. Yeah,
I think it is. It's setting that ego aside and saying, hey, listen, I'm willing to set my ego aside. Yeah. Maybe not look as good as I wanted to look, or as smart as I wanted to look, or as rich as I wanted to look, and be able to look in the mirror and say, hey, listen, here's where I'm at.
Yeah.
And it's so important to acknowledge where you're at if you want to have any chance of getting to the better, wherever you want to go, because you can realistically leverage wherever you're at. It doesn't really matter where you're at. You need to be able to leverage where you're at and know what to leverage from other people. Whether it's time, money, knowledge that you might need to get from somebody else to help you get from where you're at today. Because if you knew how to get there, you would have already done it. If you knew how to get to where you want to go, you would have already been there. Right. And so your limit, the reality is, if you set your ego aside and you look in the mirror, every single one of us has limitations that we're dealing with to get to the next level. And whatever level we're trying to get to, we all do. I do, you do, anybody listening to this does. Doesn't matter where you're at in life. You have to set that ego aside and be able to look in the mirror and say, hey, listen, here's the reality of my situation. How can I make it better?
I love it. Okay, that's fantastic. Let's go on to our next thing here. 3 things I wish I knew before I started investing. A little bit of storytelling here, okay? A little stuff here. So right now I have one of these points is cost of setup. Do you feel like when you first started out, that was something that you wish you knew, or do you already have 3 things you like better than what I have here? Or
what do you got? Cost of setup, appreciation for hospitality, taxes, turn. So here's the things. The biggest thing that I wish I understood is the opportunity lost for not starting sooner. And so the compound returns that you get over time, especially in real estate or any investment really for that matter, and when I was younger, if I understood anything at all that I wish that I would have understood and really bought into and really like just internalized and like latched onto was the fact of how much it costs you to sit on the sidelines, how much it costs you to not be doing something and buying some assets or saving for that next investment or whatever it is. The cost of not being in the game, and especially when it's any sort of investment, if you lose 3 years, it's massive after a 5 or 10 year period. You lose 5 or 10 years, what that is, you don't know how detrimental that is to your portfolio growth and what you're able to do. And so number one lesson I wish I learned is the opportunity cost of sitting on the sideline. And you see it from, obviously if you understand it when you're in your 20s, you're so far ahead of the game. But I see people in their 50s sitting there and they don't understand that concept of, and then they think, well, I'll still wait. And it's even worse the older you get, right? And so that's a huge one. When it comes to taxes that you mentioned on there is being able to invest in assets and businesses that help us reduce the tax liability that we're paying Uncle Sam. It's a massive, massive lifetime expense. It's your biggest lifetime expense is taxes that you're going to pay, especially if you have any sort of success at all in business and your active earned income, and saying, okay, understanding that is such a massive expense that I'm paying Uncle Sam. And there's a lot of levers that you can pull on the business side, on the investment side, on a lot of different donation side, all the different things that you can do to be able to reduce the taxable income you're paying, but also grow your portfolio. Understanding that early on would have been huge, right? I mean, with short-term rentals right now, we're supplementing sometimes 60 to 70% of our down payments, from buying assets that reduce our taxes by that amount. You're almost basically funding your down payment growth. Or your portfolio growth and the down payments to grow that portfolio. And understanding that early on is massive, because when I was younger, specifically, the last thing I ever wanted to learn about or talk about was taxes. I didn't even understand it hardly. Like I just was, I'd go to the CPA at the end of the year, I'd pay for it. I knew nothing about tax strategy and didn't pay attention to it at all. And over the course of a 25-year investing career, and a lot of that career making a pretty decent amount of money, and be able to have a significant amount of that back to parlay into building that portfolio. I mean, it's I would hate to even go back and run the numbers on the loss of not being paying Uncle Sam and not being able to put that into my portfolio growth. And so really understanding the taxes as well side of it. And then the third and the most important thing is the importance of not bouncing around a whole bunch of different lanes, right? Real estate is a wide world. Business is a wide world. And there's a lot of different lanes you can run down, and all of them have their pros and cons. All of them have challenges on the front end, and all of them you're going to get excited about in the beginning, and then that optimism is going to fade and it's going to get harder, and you're going to think something else is better. The grass is always greener. And when I was younger, I would bounce around different opportunities, and that again, your cost of starting and stopping and starting and stopping and starting and stopping, you never get far enough down the road to make massive gains and bigger gains. And the sooner I was able to learn to stay in my lane and stick in a lane, even though there's great opportunities outside of what we do, for sure there is. I'm not here to tell anybody that short-term rentals are an end-all be-all. We've just been doing it for a long time, and I've been staying in this lane because I understand the value of not starting and stopping anymore, and how much that puts a pause on your wealth building strategy and really the lifestyle you're trying to build. And so being able to say, okay, listen, I realize things are going to take a little bit longer than they're going to, maybe I want them to, and being able to stay in that lane until they actually start to produce for you I would say is probably the third one. And you notice how they're all kind of, they're all very similar, right? Between and the opportunity lost of sitting on the sidelines, the opportunity lost of not understanding taxes and tax strategy, and being able to use money you are already paying in taxes to put into your portfolio growth, into your business growth. There's lots of ways to be able to do that. And then finally, picking a lane and staying with it long enough to where you actually build something worth talking about.
Wow. Those are really good three.
Those aren't your
Those
three.
aren't my three,
Those
but I
aren't your
like
three.
those three. Those were really good.
Good.
That was some nice wisdom right there. Okay. This is YouTube. This is what they're recommending here. They want to know the difference in a timeshare versus a vacation house.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I know. So, all right. I mean, I know our timeshares, they always seem like they always get a bad rap. They always seem like they get a really bad rap, and we really sell I really love, I should say, the framing of the lifestyle asset with this. And I felt like maybe that could be a similarity that timeshares also tried to sell. But what are some of their main differences?
Yeah. So one is you don't timeshare. You technically have ownership, but you're literally just buying into an owner's group. And then it's exactly what it sounds like. You get a certain time allotted every single year for your share of that portfolio or that specific asset or whatever it is. You don't have any real ownership rights beyond that, right? Outside of the usage. Usually timeshares just stop on the share that you're buying to use. Ultimately, that, like a lot of like your big hotel brands and everything else, you're never going to get, you're not going to get any money from any sort of liquidation of assets or anything like that. You own a certain percentage, and they just keep selling more shares, right?
Okay.
And so it always is actually very interesting to me that home ownership and even fractional ownership is way different than timeshares. Fractional ownership is you're going in with a group of people buying an asset or multiple assets, and you all own a certain percentage of ownership, and you maybe have usage, but it's really more of an ownership model where you're buying fractional shares of a specific portfolio. You do get, if you buy it for $100,000 and you sell it for $200,000 based on your ownership fraction or your percentage of ownership, you have some upside there. Right. Timeshares, you really don't. And then what we talk about is building a portfolio individually owned properties, right? And so we can use them, right? But we get to do whatever with them, right? We get to rent them, we get to use them, we get to buy them, sell them, like increase the value. Right. If they go down in value, we're on the hook. If they go up in value, we get a nice gain. Right. All those different things of home ownership. And so timeshares, you don't think about as the ownership model itself. And they do get a bad rap because one of my worst investments we ever made as far as like a real estate, it's not an investment. I shouldn't even say it's a worst investment. It's not really an investment. We bought a timeshare and we have a Marriott timeshare. The issue with them is we go use it. We actually use our timeshare. We use it every single year. We go to the same resort in Hawaii for my kid's birthday. That's why we bought it. We bought their birthday week. We want to go there and use this resort. And so we actually do use it. The issue becomes I think we paid like $60,000 back when we bought it. I think it's worth more than that now, but I can't sell it for more. It's not like I can go sell my my week for more than that. I
Right.
can sell my week to somebody. I don't get anywhere near what they're charging for them right now because the resort has all these stipulations on that. So
Right.
I could go resell it to somebody else. Very difficult on the open market to even get what I paid for it. However, what happens is they have these annual dues, these maintenance dues and everything that you pay. Well, they go up every single year.
Oh, wow.
And what it seems like they do is they go up in basically, so my week's maintenance fees are really close to what I could actually go pay a week for at that same resort.
Oh, wow.
And so so when I say like, it's not, I should have just went and paid for the week every single year, right? I thought when you're buying it, you're sold on the fact that, oh, listen, you buy this and after so long, well, you know, it's going to be great. And you own this week. Well, we do. Yeah. We paid the 60 grand at the time, and we have this week in Hawaii. But every single year, my annual dues on that are around $5,000. Well, I could go buy that week for like $7 grand.
Yeah.
So I'm saving about $2 grand. So I've got I got 30 years before I pay this thing. Yeah. It even breaks me even based on the savings I'm making by doing this. So that's just an example of a timeshare that I own. But it's not like, and there's really nothing I can do with it. I have no say in selling it or anything like that. I mean, I can get rid of it and sell it. I don't get I don't recoup any of my money really and then fractional and is a little bit different where you're buying a property with a certain amount of people. 5 of you go buy a property, you're each putting 20% in, right? And so you're that's a little bit different. We really talk about lifestyle assets, ownership, buying these properties. Timeshares are completely different. They do get confused a lot. It's interesting on, like you said, on YouTube, it's trending. The difference between a vacation house and timeshare is just the model. One of them is an ownership model. The other is basically a license to use. Like you're basically getting a license and you're paying for exactly what it sounds like, timeshares. Like you're paying for a certain amount of time and your share is going to allot you a certain amount of time in that.
Okay, so the similarities is that you get to use the property. You get to go there. Lifestyle asset use or timeshare use, that's a similarity. The difference is the savings on taxes, the ownership, the decisions made with if you buy and sell it, the design of it, like all the
you're not getting any of that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not the ownership model.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Good. Okay. That clears that up for people watching or listening. Yeah. Last topic, since we didn't touch on this last week, we got to go over this. Regulations. All right. And the best way to find, I've heard you say the one thing that will keep you away from a market is regulations, right? You're not even going to try and fight it. So what's a good way that some people can find out if there's regulations in the area they're looking for?
So there's multiple layers that you're going to look at, right? And so just think about it starting from the top.
Okay.
So you're going to start from the top at the state level. Okay. Are there any rules or regulations against this type of ownership, short-term rentals in the state? There's no states in the U.S., contrary to what is taught on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, where people say states disallow short-term rentals. That's not true. There's no states that say you can't short-term rent any properties. Okay. So there's no states currently that disallow short-term rentals. Then you go down to the county level. Are there any rules or regulations in the county level? So you got to call your planning and zoning commission, right? And I always say the best way is to go and ask, how do I apply for and purchase a permit or a license to operate a short-term rental? And they're going to tell you, we have these, no, we don't have them, it's not allowed, blah, blah, and they'll point you in the right direction. Now, you have to remember when you call, this is a level of, there's a lot of programs that we have, like even AirDNA and some of these programs that we use, try to show us the areas that are regulated or not regulated. It's very difficult to stay up to date and up to speed on it because things change all the time and you really have to dive in and do your homework. So we go to the county level, then we go to the city level, and then ultimately you're going to go into an HOA level. So there's a lot of layers, right? Because the state might allow it, the county might allow it, the city might allow it, and then bam, your HOA says no. Right. And so, and if they have regulations and they say you can't short-term rent in this community because there's HOAs that restrict it, you can't do it. You're not going to be able to. So you have to go and look at all of those layers. And when you're trying to decide, and you've got to make some phone calls and you've got to do a bit of research, because also when somebody tells you, I can't tell you how many people at city and county offices that are making probably minimum wage and they're sitting there, they're government workers, not to that was probably enough shade to throw there. But what I'm getting at is sometimes they're not the most competent, and they don't tell you. And I'm just saying from personal experience, I can't tell you how many times they tell you the wrong thing.
Okay.
They're like, oh no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, where does that say that? Can I get a copy of the planning, zoning, wherever it says that you cannot operate as a short-term rental?
They don't have it,
or they give it to you and it's nowhere to be found in there, and they don't have it. And so you really have to make sure that you look it up and find it. And it can be a pain, right?
Right.
AI can do a lot of research for you now and point you in the right direction. However, again, you can use it as the front end research, and then you've got to dive a little bit deeper.
Right.
You've got to make the phone calls. You need to see it with your own eyes on the CC&Rs in a community that says this is what we allow, this is not what we allow. I have a property that I have as a short-term rental here in Utah. It's in an HOA, and everybody tells me I can't do it. There's the HOA president says you can't do a short-term rental, and I say, okay, I'm looking at CC&Rs. Show me. It actually says that how everything can be operated, and that's what your CC&Rs are. Or they're going to spell out all the rules and regulations. It's covenants, codes, and restrictions in an HOA, and they're recorded documents. When developers develop a community or subdivision, they'll record CC&Rs, which are the covenants, codes, and restrictions of that area, and it addresses these types of things.
Okay.
Can I rent it? Can I run a business? Can I do, how can I landscape? What are the setbacks? All these different things that they have. And one of the restrictions are, what are you going to do? What the usage of the property in short-term rentals is a different type of use of the property. So I go in and I said, doesn't say anywhere in here. And the HOA president is 3 houses away from mine, and it drives her nuts. And there's nothing we can do. And she says, you can't do it. You can't do it. You can't do it. She just doesn't want it in there.
Right.
But she doesn't give us a problem with our guests or anything like that. But you will have people tell you can't, and you have to still go verify. And unfortunately, it is a bit of a manual process if you really want to make sure the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, that you get confirmation that you can operate a short-term rental. Because to your point, that is a wild card that you are flirting with in the gray area if you don't do that. And you hear somebody say, oh man, I had this great property and now I can't short-term rent it. Well, that's a big, big mistake. If you buy a property with the intention of short-term renting it, and then you're told you can't after you close on a property, after you have a property, because your plan B, like I always tell people, plan B is not always just go long-term rent it. Because a lot of times it's not going to cover the bills. Most of the time it's not going to cover the bills as a long-term rental. If they did, we probably would long-term rent them. To be honest. And unless it was a true lifestyle asset where I really wanted to use it, because it's way easier, way cheaper to buy and set up a short-term or a long-term rental, because I don't have to furnish it. I don't have to create these immersive experiences. The management side of it is so much easier. I got my turnovers once every couple of years in a quality asset versus, every other day.
It's really interesting. Have you ever heard of a situation where someone will buy the short-term rental, it's operating for a while, and then restrictions or regulations, I should say, are implemented? Does that ever happen?
Yes. Yeah. So
okay.
Usually if you said, hey, listen, I got a license and a permit and everything else, and then an area becomes more restrictive, and they say, hey, we're going to start to add layers of rules and regulations on this.
Right.
If you're operating in the way you're supposed to be and you've got a license and a permit, you're usually going to be grandfathered in.
Nice.
If the rules do change and you were following the current set of rules and they became more restrictive, you're going to usually get grandfathered in. And so that can be really beneficial, because now you're operating in a lot more of a closed market that has some guardrails up for new competition and more supply to come into your market. And so you can be operating in a market that has limited supply and limited competitors come in to compete against you.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Now, would you ever be kind of hesitant, like say maybe you find a county and then you're like researching that stuff and you see some news articles from the local news station, and they're saying, council members are debating whether or not we should continue with short-term rentals. Would you kind of immediately go, let me just look for somewhere else?
I watch it really close.
You watch it real close.
Yeah, we watch that. Colorado keeps flirting with the idea of tripling property tax for non-owner occupants, for people with second homes, and triple property tax in a high price market can be very costly. I mean, it can take you from profitable to losing money every single year when you start doing it. So we really watch that. There are areas that have already passed that. And when you're checking at the state level and you're saying, hey, can I operate as a short-term rental? Yeah, you can operate as a short-term rental, but just so you know, non-owner occupant properties pay X amount extra in taxes and fees or whatever else. So you need to know the cost of doing business as well, because you might be able to operate, but the cost doesn't make a lot of sense. And so people hear me talk about all the time, investing in red states and blue states, and red areas and blue areas, and red cities and blue cities. And I avoid blue cities because they're typically a lot more regulated. They have more fees and regulations, and they're going to look at investors as, the person who can pay for all their handout policies. And so I don't like them because of the fact that they're more regulated. Has nothing to do with the politics of it, outside of the fact that the politics are going to tend to have more regulations. And so we're going to look for some of those areas that are not as regulated. They're going to be a little bit more conservative with the regulations and allow us to operate our businesses without trying to charge an arm and a leg for extra fees and taxes and everything else. And the more a lot of the more blue areas, you're going to find when you start to do your research that they're going to be higher regulations and higher fees and higher taxes to operate in those areas a lot of times.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. So Colorado, they're flirting with the idea of 3 times the property tax. Do you think other states?
And by the way, it didn't pass. It's It was on the ballot and didn't pass.
Oh wow!
But when you start to flirt with that and you have those conversations, you put it back on the ballot. What happens if it does pass?
Right.
There's been some crazy elections and some things that have passed that would not be in the best interest of an investor in certain areas.
Have you? Okay, so there's no states that have done it. It seems more just like on the county level. I'm guessing that there's the regulations, or it just checks.
Yeah, just restrictions.
Okay,
so there's regulations at state levels, but no state restricts short-term rentals. Currently.
Do you have like any predictions? Do you think kind of just like these states that they may be the first to do it? Any kind of?
Well, you've got the big cities who did. You had New York, San Francisco, Seattle that have come out and they restrict short-term rentals altogether. You can't operate a short-term rental in San Francisco and New York. Their argument was for housing. We've talked about this on the podcast. It's been a few, I think a year and a half, 2 years now since they made that change, and housing affordability has not gone down at all, 1 ounce. And so the big bad short-term rental investors that screwed up the whole housing market, the receipts are in, and the receipts are not showing
that we did that much damage.
That there was that much damage. In fact, it was quite the opposite. Housing affordability is a very interesting issue, and I'm 100% for. We need to try to figure out how we can make housing more affordable. However, the underlying issue is it's supply and demand. Right.
Yeah.
When your demand skyrocketed over the last few years through immigration, and supply has not been going up and keeping up with it, the cost of housing goes up. Period. There's more people that need housing, and when you have more people willing to pay and need housing, and many of them are getting supplemented and getting supplements from the government, it's hard to compete with that. And so prices go up. It has nothing to do usually with short-term rentals, in my opinion. And so I think that I would love to see. It's a really good talking point. All these investors, and you go to a lot of these major cities. And so, I think the prediction is these major metro areas, these major cities are going to struggle to allow us to go in there. But also, I don't know that it matters that much. I mean, I have no interest in owning in those big cities anyways. You got a lot of the hotels and resort brands and lots of options for the consumers in those areas anyways. Even though lots of people go to those areas, there's other options for them, and I would like to operate in an environment that doesn't have all those rules and regulations. Right? We're trying to stack the odds in our favor. We're trying to make the road we're running down as easy as possible. It's hard enough to succeed. It's hard enough to go build these portfolios. So all I'm saying is stack the odds as much in your favor as you can.
Of course.
Right? That's all we're trying to do is say, hey, listen, set again, set the ego aside. Put the politics aside. It has nothing to do with politics outside of what the politics lead to as far as decisions and regulations and fees and all that kind of stuff. And so I just choose to try to run down the easiest road possible when it comes to that.
Yeah, well, that makes sense, man. You don't want to go into a place that's going to, give you some problems later down the road or anything. That makes sense. But today's been a great episode. Okay. We talked about trending topics, 50-year mortgages. We've gone into the walking this with the eyes wide open. 3 things you wish you knew. This trending topic. We touched on regulation. Fantastic episode. Educational stuff, trending stuff. I can't complain.
Good job, man. You're coming up with some good topics.
Thank you,
Jake.
man.
Good job,
I'm
buddy.
trying, but it's a
Producer
great day to
Jake
be alive.
With the topics.
Great day to be alive.
Yeah, it is a great day to be alive. We hope you guys feel the same way. It is a great day to be alive, as Jake would say. We always appreciate you spending your time with us. It's a lot of fun having these conversations. We love that you guys join us on these conversations. Share your feedback. As a reminder, to send us questions in. If you have questions for us that you want us to answer, send them to support@vodyssey.com, and we'll make sure that we get them answered on an upcoming episode. Jake will do a good job of making sure that that's in the topic list. And so, as always, thanks for joining us. Share the show, like it, review it on whatever platform you're watching or listening on. Those things help us, and we very, very much appreciate it. And the final, most important thing I ask at the end of every episode, pick that one thing you can do today. Start building that life you don't want to take a vacation from. Cheers, my friends. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. Share this with other people you think need to hear about it. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Hey Grace, is there a website? Yes! For more amazing content and expert advice, visit Vodyssey.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.